Hello, my name is Matthew. I mentioned in an earlier video that my little book channel has reached 700 subscribers, and I'm really happy about that, and very thankful for everyone that enjoys watching my videos. And I asked for questions, and I got a great response, lots of comments and questions. I hand wrote all the questions. I'll respond to the comments after I finish recording this. So we'll just start. Katerina M. She says, "I keep seeing cancer work. I keep seeing Cancer Ward in the background. Have you read it?" And I have, and I loved it and thought it was incredibly powerful. I love microcosm novels. Every once in a while, I'll end up talking to someone who says that Magic Mountain is their favorite book, or that they've loved Magic Mountain, and Cancer Ward is always the next book that I would recommend. If anyone knows of any microcosm novels, I would love to know. So please leave a comment if you'd like. Thank you, Katerina. Manuela Fisher. Is there any book you really liked but on reread changed your mind? And there are plenty. The main thing that the first thing that comes to mind are books that I read when I was a late teenager or in my early 20s, and then revisited now. I'm in my mid 30s, but books that I revisited much later. And the first thing that comes to mind are a lot of the beats, Kerouac, William S. Burroughs, Ginsberg, and it's very curious. I don't know if they really spoke to me if they're just meant for a young audience, or if they were just never good to begin with. I don't know. But Kerouac, at some point I tried reading On the Road again, and was just so frustrated. I just kept thinking, like, they're still on the road. And Burroughs, a lot of that shock value hasn't really done it for me. Burroughs does have a trilogy. I can't even think of it, but he has a late trilogy that I still do really like. But the Cut Up series, Naked Lunch, and things like that. It's neat to see experiments and understand that you can really cross boundaries and try new things. That does not necessitate a good or enjoyable reading experience. So I've learned that. Have you read Raymond Carver? I have. I hope I'm thinking of the right author. Carver wrote Cathedral. So I've read a handful of his short stories, and I like them. I thought they were quite good. I will say I don't think that they're amazing. I had heard so much about his short stories, and I thought they were really good, but certainly not not the greatest thing I'd ever read. He's one of my favorites. He's good. He's definitely good. And I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Croin Kicks. What do you do for a living? What would you say is the greatest movie? So I work at a lumberyard, and I've been there for about eight or 9 years, and I'm pretty happy there. I've worked in the yard loading trucks. I was the lower yard foreman. There was a point in time I was the foreman, and there was at least one employee who had been working there longer than I had been alive, and somehow all of a sudden I was his supervisor. There was no conflict. We got along really well, but it's interesting to think about. What would you say is the greatest movie? My favorite movie is Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. He has an imaginary friend who is a 6'2" rabbit, an invisible rabbit who's his friend, and all he wants to do is go to the bar and have his martini with his friend. And throughout the whole movie, he runs into people, and he has a business card, Elwood P. Dowd, and he gives him his business card and invites him out to dinner. And he has a family that's embarrassed that they have like a nut job relation. It's just a wonderful movie. But if I had to say like the greatest movie, and to me that sort of means like a cinematic experience. There's a handful of movies by Akira Kurosawa that are sort of the first things I think about, like Seven Samurai, Ran, Rashomon. What's that other one? Yojimbo, Sanjuro. I have them over there. Another movie, Barry Lyndon by Kubrick. I think is just a masterpiece. And the other thing that I was thinking about are movies where the actor completely takes over the movie. Like without the actor, you don't have any sort of experience. And the two people that I think about are Charlie Chaplin, an absolutely magnetic character. Without that one thing, without Charlie, you have no movie. And to have that much resting on your shoulders, I do think is something really great. And the other one that I've recently started watching is John Wayne movies. I've told a couple of my friends that more and more I think he's one of the greatest actors, and everybody winces at me. And I just say, like, just think, like, he just stands there, and you can't take your eyes off of him. It's amazing. So Harvey's my favorite movie. A lot of the Kurosawa movies are probably some of the greatest movies, and I've learned to really appreciate John Wayne. Debbie Baker, I'm interested in your cats, Matthew. How old are they? What are their personalities like? Have you always been a cat person? So Andy will be 2 in a few months. He's my little boy. And Daphne is a few months older than 1. Andy is a big, friendly, social, affectionate friend of mine. We get along really well. He loves me. He loves to climb all over me and push his face right in my face. Daphne is more timid, shy. There they are. See him? There's Andy. And Daphne. But Daphne took months to gain her trust, and we now have just a really strong relationship. She trusts me completely. I can pick her up and rub her belly and play with her, whereas if I wanted to just touch her initially, she would cower, and that was for months. I've learned that she likes to be manhandled. That's sort of how she likes to play. And I remember thinking, like, you minx, you've always been, pulling back, but as soon as I kind of rough around with her, she loves it. It's hilarious. Um, I'm a cat person. I'm a dog person. I really enjoy spending time with um, animals. So I'm both. How long have you had your YouTube channel? I started it in January of 2019. I'm sorry. Uh, Purgatory Paul's book review. I'm sorry about that. Asks, how long have you had your YouTube channel? And I've had it since January 2019. And I think it was about nine or 10 months that after about 9 or 10 months of having a channel, I had about 20 subscribers, and I was posting pretty frequently. And I was like post something like a couple days would go by and I had 0 views. Um, and Somehow I've recently thought that BookTube found me. Brian from Bookish mentioned me in one of his Saturday hodgepodge videos that he does. Um, they're it's one of the things I look forward to each week. And he mentioned my, I don't even know how he found it, but he mentioned my channel. Uh, and within like a month, I had gained like 100 subscribers, um, which it's not. My goal hasn't been to get a lot of subscribers. My goal is just to do the best I can, talking about books that interest me. But it's hard to deny that it feels good that people want to listen to you talk. Um, so that's my answer. Lorry E, how many books do you own? Do you give yourself a spending limit? Um, I don't know exactly how many books I own. If I had to estimate, I'd say around 1,000, something like that. Um, and I don't really give myself a spending limit because um, for the past maybe 2 years, I'm very cautious with buying books. I live in a tiny house, so space is extremely limited. Um, so I am pretty selective with the books that I buy. Um, though I should say, for a very long time, I was downright irresponsible with my purchases, uh, but I've corrected that. Amelia reads. Um, Hello, Amelia. She says, "Do you have a favorite book? Did you have a favorite book as a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, and as a 20-year-old? Tell us about them." I didn't start reading until I was a late teenager, early 20-year-old, around that time. Um, so I don't have any favorite children's books um, or anything. But some of the earliest writers that caught my eye were Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Hunter S. Thompson, Salinger. Um, they're all, they have a bunch of books that really target young teenagers, and it's at least in hindsight, it's easy for me to see why. Like Catcher in the Rye, it's angsty young boy or whatever. Um, I still, I still enjoy Hemingway, not nearly as much as I originally did, but he has a few books that I like. Fitzgerald, I still just flat out like. Also, Jonathan Safran Foer, he wrote Everything is Illuminated and Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close. And when those books came out, I just thought this guy was a wizard. Um, and, and now I don't see anything remarkable. Not in his news stuff, but the stuff that I've read. Um, it just, I don't know. It was like a being mesmerized by something that I don't quite understand. Remembered reads. I did. So she said this might be a silly question, but how high are your ceilings? And on the lower part where I'm sitting, I have a shed style tiny house. So there's a high point, a low point, and there's a pitch. And it's a couple inches over 11 feet tall. The house is built right at DOT regulations on the outside. And when Ben and I were discussing it, very rightly so, Ben said, in order to feel like you have a spacious living area, we need to have the highest ceilings possible, because the inside is just over 200 square feet, and the high ceilings kind of create an illusion that it's much larger. So yeah, I mean, I do have tall ceilings, but I have small floors. Rambling Rock on Tour is another one of my favorite channels. If you're still watching at this point and haven't checked out his channel, you should. If I remember, I'll leave a link to his channel. Have you ever read Emile Zola? Any particular works that you enjoyed from him? And I've read a handful of his books. But Belly of Paris is probably my favorite. Gosh, what were the other ones? Some of them are in French. I don't know how to pronounce it. Germinal, L'Amour. It's like Slammed or something. Nana, and to me, he's a third-rate French writer. I do go back and read them, but I don't really care for him. And I was actually laughing to myself because I was recently reading the Flaubert Turgenev letters, their correspondence, and they were making fun of Zola. They didn't really care for him either, and Flaubert sent Turgenev one of his books, and he said this is a punishment. So I will read more of him. He has dozens of novels, and I will read him. But so far, there hasn't been anything that I thought was masterful. I can never remember the names of the characters. He's really good with crowds, big scenes. Anyway, Bookish, Brian from Bookish. Hello. Do you still work at the lumberyard? What do you do there? What do you like about it? I've done a few things there. I think I just said earlier. I got a job there at the lowest position that you could have, just loading trucks, and moved on to being a purchaser for special doors. But actually, there has been a little bit of a shift with the virus and everything. I'm now we're changing over to having the curbside pickups and not having customers come in, or minimizing that as much as possible. And I've been in charge of handling that whole operation this past week, and it's going well. There's Daphne. And it's a fiasco, so it's both. I'm still going to work, which is somewhat nightmarish. Um, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm really sorry. I can't even begin. Jorder Svarter Skeek John. I'm sorry for butchering that. How many books do you have? How many books do you have? Do you have a catalog? Maybe show a book collection. Um, so I think I just said maybe around 1,000 books, something like that. I don't keep track at all, um, and it's never been a problem for me. Um, if anybody could rattle off any book, and I would know instantaneously um, whether or not I have it. It's easy if I don't have it, and if I do have it, I'll know if I have one or two copies or exactly what publisher it is and things like that. Um, I've never been confused with whether or not I have a book. Um, like being at a bookstore and thinking like, do I already have this? Um, I feel like I'd have to have a lot more books before I ever get there, and have read a lot more and all that. And I've been thinking about doing a bookshelf tour. Um, and maybe one day. I keep going back and forth. Um, is there any movie that you think? Sorry, Culture Fan. Hello, Culture Fan asks, is there any movie you think was better than the book? Who are your two favorite authors? If you could live anywhere, where would that be? Um, so, one of my favorite movies is Barry Lyndon by Stanley Kubrick. Um, and I think it's significantly better than the book. Um, if I would wholeheartedly recommend watching the movie, and I would not recommend the book. Um, who are your my two favorite authors? Pretty easily are Dostoevsky and Flaubert. Um, but one's a Russian, one's French. English writers, where I'm reading the original, I would probably say Herman Melville. Um, just on Moby Dick alone, if you only read Moby Dick, I think his entire reputation can rest on that. But he has a whole bunch of other books, tons other things um, that would support his position as one of the greatest English writers, or American English writers. Um, and I'll also say Truman Capote. For those early short stories, I don't know if he's the greatest, but personally they touch me, and I've been going back to them for over a decade. I've been rereading and rereading his short stories. So that's sort of a personal. They're all personal. If you could live anywhere, where would that be? Outside of the United States, I would like to. I've never been outside of the United States, so I would like to visit Ireland, and I can fantasize about living in Ireland. That's where I would like to go, and I, without ever being there, can already imagine living there. In the United States, I would like to go to Utah. I could imagine living there, even though I haven't been there either. And JC, how do you find out about the books you read, or want to read or buy, or go into the to be read pile? And this answer has dramatically changed within the past year and a half. I get a lot of my almost all of my book recommendations from watching BookTube. It's the best source that I've ever come across. all over the world. I've been meeting people that I can, after time, trust them. I feel like I understand their sensibilities. I enjoy their personality, and they are older than me. Some people have decades on me of experience, and time after time, for the few books that I buy this past year, almost all of them have been a recommendation from somebody that I've watched on YouTube. Um, so before that, it was my friend Bob, but he's dead now. And we're done. So if you've gotten this far, thank you for watching. Please leave a comment. If I missed anybody, I really hope that I didn't. Um, let me know. And I hope everyone's doing well. Take care. Thank you for watching.